30 years ago, South Africa was born as a new nation, equal, united, and free from apartheid. We adopted a new constitution as the birth certificate of our new nation.
From our archives. United in a divided country. In the picture we see Milton Bartlett and some black brothers preaching in a black neighborhood during the apartheid era. From 1948 until the early 1990s, the political system in South Africa was apartheid. The footnote reads, Apartheid was a system that enforced racial segregation. Based on a person's race, apartheid determined what education he received, what secular work he could do, where he could live, and whom he could marry. For more information, see What Was Apartheid in the 2007 Yearbook of Jehovah's Witnesses. End of footnote. During this period, many treated people of other races unjustly. Kali, who was classified as colored or mixed ethnicity under apartheid, recalls, non-whites also discriminated against each other. Jehovah's Witnesses in South Africa come from many ethnic backgrounds. How did they deal with apartheid? And what does this part of their history teach us? Dealing with division-fueled dangers. In South Africa, some who objected to enforced racial segregation organized protests. Many of those who protested the government's policies were imprisoned, and some were killed. Those opposing the government in turn grew more violent. On the other hand, Jehovah's Witnesses obeyed the law and did not get involved in protests or attempts to change the government. In this way, they imitated the Christians of the first century who remained in subjection to the superior authorities. Romans 13:1 and 2. Many times, Jehovah's Witnesses were pressured to violate their neutrality and take sides. But taking sides could have involved them in supporting a violent political conflict or even potentially fighting against their spiritual brothers. For example, during the uprisings of 1976, many high school students were forced to join political riots, explains Tempsey. Rioting students would go from door to door looking for other students to join them. If you refused, they might burn down your home or even beat you to death. A political leader of an opposition party told a witness named Theophilus, "Once we defeat the white man, we will kill you because you did not fight for your country." Meeting together in a divided land. Despite the difficulties caused by apartheid, witnesses in South Africa kept meeting together for worship. Some congregations could not build a kingdom hall because apartheid kept many people impoverished. The footnote reads, Since 1999, funds contributed by congregations of Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide have been used to provide financial assistance to build and renovate kingdom halls wherever they are needed. End of footnote. For years we had to rent facilities that were in very poor condition, says Enver. So my father offered our home for congregation meetings. Twice a week our family transformed our house into a kingdom hall. Sometimes we had over 100 people packed into our house. After the meetings we often enjoyed showing hospitality to all. The picture caption reads, Witnesses, black and white, meeting together in April 1950. The brothers found ingenious ways to overcome obstacles that apartheid created. For example, in the Limpopo province, a white brother who was asked to speak at a circuit assembly in a black area was denied a permit to enter. So he approached the white owner of the farm adjacent to the black area, and the two made an agreement. The circuit assembly was held with the audience on one side of the farmer's fence and the visiting speaker on the other side. The picture caption reads, Interracial meeting at Rand Stadium, Johannesburg in 1980. Witnessing in segregated territories. Under apartheid, racial groups were segregated into their respective residential areas. Therefore, congregation territories were usually composed of people of the same race. Apartheid obliged the witnesses to be flexible in the way they organized publishers for field service. For instance, working unassigned territory presented certain challenges. Often there were no places where non-whites were allowed to stay overnight, so we would sleep in our cars or under trees, says Krish, who was categorized as Indian under apartheid. In the morning, we would wash up at a fuel station restroom. At times, though, even these restrooms were marked whites only. In spite of this, publishers supported the ministry and enjoyed preaching to many interested ones in rural areas. The picture caption reads, Interracial Group of Witnesses Preaching in a Rural Area in 1981. Despite these difficulties, Jehovah's people kept growing in number. When apartheid was legislated in 1948, there were 4,831 publishers in South Africa. By the time it ended in 1994, the number of publishers had reached 58,729. That publisher base led to even further growth. In 2021, South Africa reached a peak of 100,112 publishers. Surrounded by hatred, united by love. During the apartheid era, Jehovah's Witnesses in South Africa lived in a country known for enforced racial segregation. In this environment, they worked hard to promote love and harmony among people of all races. They did this by teaching and following Bible principles. Although surrounded by hatred, they were united by love. In the picture, we see a white brother witnessing to a black woman and her young son in a rural area. In 1993, Jehovah's Witnesses held a multiracial convention in South Africa. A prominent political leader watched witnesses from South Africa warmly greet and embrace international delegates as they arrived at the airport. He said, "If we had the same spirit of unity as you, we would have solved our problems long ago." The picture captions read, Milton Henschel from the World Headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses, speaking at a large interracial witness gathering in 1955. At the South Africa branch of Jehovah's Witnesses, black and white staff members worked together in 1986. Thomas Skosana left, and Alfred Steinberg, longtime witnesses at a convention in 1985. Interracial group of witnesses serving food at a convention in 1985. A large interracial crowd of witnesses meeting at the FNB Stadium in Johannesburg in 2011. The following is supplementary information. Promoting unity in a divided country. We can imitate the fine example of witnesses who served faithfully under apartheid. Consider the following experiences. Work on overcoming ethnic bias. We were raised in an environment that promoted the idea of white superiority, explains Minky. She and her husband learned the truth as adults. We volunteered to serve in a non-white field. We worked hard to get rid of any racist feelings and prayed specifically about this problem. Minky and her husband overcame racial bias and were blessed. In just 3 years, the small isolated group we served with became a congregation having over 100 people attending. The picture shows an image of Minky. Do not be quick to take offense. Ecclesiastes 7:9. When a fellow witness says or does something that I believe reflects racial bias, I remember that Jehovah is very patient, says Braff. It takes time to put on the new personality. I pray to Jehovah to help me imitate his patience and continue to show love. The picture shows an image of Braff. Remain neutral by avoiding political propaganda. There were a number of anti-apartheid magazines in circulation, says Loyiso. I wanted to remain neutral, so I refused to read such material. The picture shows an image of Loyiso. Stay focused on doing God's will. Being part of Jehovah's organization has always given me purpose in life and a sense of belonging, says Ronnie. Keeping very busy in the ministry and other spiritual activities helped me to keep my mind off the difficulties of life under apartheid. The picture shows an image of Ronnie. Follow theocratic order rather than fleshly bias. I started serving as a circuit overseer when I was 26 years old, says Ernest, who was classified as colored under apartheid. Some of the congregations I served had white elders who were old enough to be my father, and yet those elders did not display airs of superiority. They humbly accepted the organizational guidelines I shared with them and any counsel I offered. The picture shows an image of Ernest.